we want you to make your content work harder. You pay a lot for your content, for your blog content, it's not just, we want you to look at it from a different angle and see how you can leverage the content assets that you have to make your website work harder for you and to make your content become more evergreen.
Yeah, and that's really important, Ray, because when you think about it, where does content fit into our lead funnel framework? And it fits into that section primarily where we talk about establishing authority and also establishing empathy. And so it's an area where we put a lot of work into, as Ray mentioned, and also expense and just time and maybe working with contractors or freelancers and things like that. So if we can get that content to work even better for us, well, that's awesome. So Ray, I'm going to be Ray's Vanna today, and what I mean by that is I've got his slides on my computer, and I'm going to advance those. So Ray, if you don't mind doing me a solid and just letting me know when you're ready to move from slide to slide, and I'll take care of you on this end.
Sure. So if you can go to the first slide, we're going to talk about what is content atomization.
You bet.
So the idea is, again, that we're taking a big content piece and we're breaking it down into more strategic pieces. The idea is a topic and then a subtopic, but then leveraging those subtopics across all the social media platforms that you have. Paul likes to use the expression, we want to get as many lures into as many ponds as possible. So this way, instead of creating a new lure, which means bait for us city folk, for Paul and you country folks, that might resonate a little better. But the idea is that rather than having to come up with new ideas all the time, you're going to try to focus on that theme or that content element, break it down into smaller sets using more keywords or related keywords or key phrases, and getting the most bang for the buck for the content that you've produced.
Yeah, so let's go right in line with what Lisa talks about all the time: pre-purpose, repurpose. Right? So you come up with this topic, and you're going to get maximum value for what you're producing.
Yes, absolutely. So let's go on to the next slide.
Yeah, you bet.
So again, let's see. Hold on. You're breaking something down. You're trying to squeeze the most out of every content and idea that you have. And ultimately, you're going to get better results in the form of leads. But what happens as you're breaking this content down, we're going to show you how you can leverage this as an SEO SEO tactic as well. Paul, let's hit the next slide.
Great.
So how does this work into the lead funnel? Well, you've got awareness, interest, decision. Everybody has a different way of talking about the lead funnel. But you're splitting your content up so that you can talk to your prospect at where they are in the buying process, whether it's in the awareness phase. Obviously, you're using content marketing. It might be a top of funnel, very broad topic. As they get farther now, they've heard of your business, they're in market for something, so they're in the interest phase. Ebooks, newsletters, case studies, and then finally for decision. Your CTAs are really, really important, and email marketing is essential as well here. So let's go to the next slide, Paul. So I'm going to use one of our clients as an example. The company is called Copper Mobile, and they build mobile apps. And when the pandemic hit, they decided to come up with a free training program for anybody that was interested in becoming a web developer or a field. The idea was to look at people that were laid off from their jobs and needed some help and were maybe interested in the tech field, because as you know, the tech field is essential to our economy. And the leadership at Copper Mobile decided to do something for the community, and they came up with a free 6-week online training program. So the way they launched it is Arvin, who's the CEO you see on the screen, he did a 6-minute video explaining what the problem was and what Copper Mobile's solution was, which was free 6-week training. So the base piece of content was this 6-minute and 18-second video. So Paul, let's hit the next screen. So what we recommended to the company and what they did, and we actually have some extra ideas that are soon to be implemented, is first they took this, they natively uploaded up. So remember, one video, 6 minutes and 18 seconds. So they natively uploaded the file into Facebook and LinkedIn, and then took the video and added it to their YouTube channel, and then optimized the description with keywords or key phrases. Then they took 30 to 60-second snippets and created sizzle videos that they then used as commercials or ads for this program and uploaded those into social. So now they got a bunch of video social posts.
That's
They
fantastic.
used transcript software, recording all of Armin's words, and then we're able to create blogs out of this one video.
Wow, that's a lot of views.
Yeah, exactly. So then you can pull sections of the audio out for use in a future podcast, which is something they're in the process of doing right now. We took select quotes and still images and used it for more social posts besides the video, because some people like me, I'm not real keen on video. My attention span, it becomes more and more limited as I get older. So give me a good quote and give me a screenshot of something interesting, and I'll click that before I'll click a video. I'm probably atypical, but that's me. So they're making sure they get everybody in the sales process or the sales funnel. Then they took parts of the video, the transcript, and they're using that as content for their email drips. So they've got a set of 6 emails that they send out once they get somebody into the sales funnel, and reminds them of the value, not only of the 6-week training program, but what Copper Mobile does. And then we have ideas for a future webinar where we can use parts of this for parts of the video as part of the webinar. So, right, just from this example alone, there's probably 10 content pieces that we got out of this.
Wow, out of a 6-minute video, Ray, that's pretty amazing. I'm really impressed with that. And one thing that you brought out that I hadn't thought about before is obviously, I get the idea of chunking or coming up with these smaller pieces of content through pre-purposing or repurposing so that you get maximum exposure in these different platforms. But you said something really important that I want to make sure everybody got, and that is not everybody likes every platform. Some people prefer engaging in social, and some people prefer emails, and some people prefer static images. And I hadn't thought about that. I mean, I've got folks that follow me on LinkedIn that, never open my emails, but every time I post something on LinkedIn, they're liking or commenting on them. And so this is really maximizing not only the content from a distribution perspective, but really from a modality perspective and what your users really are accustomed to or the way they want to interact with you.
It goes back to the first example I used, which, again, Paul, you've been saying this since I met you in 2004, which was we got to get as many fishing lines in as many ponds as possible. So, to your point, we want to get as many places as possible, but we also want to be able to speak to people where they are in the sales funnel.
Yeah, it makes so much sense.
So let's go on to the next slide.
Okay.
And this is an example that I pulled from that was out from another content strategy website. But you see the full video, and then it's broken down to all the different places you can use this: podcasts, transcripts, Instagram for still photos, YouTube, LinkedIn for webinars. You could actually then use this for conferences, which is something that Paul we did prior pandemic. Our primary form of lead generation is lunch and learns. And we, for this particular video that you're watching right now, could be repurposed for something that Paul and I decide to do somewhere down the road. But you see blogs, ebooks, SMS, sure, why not? Newsletter, chatbots, to ask probing questions and use some of the transcripts for the answers for the chatbot. So there's just a ton of opportunities you can use. Traditionally you would do a blog, you'd post it, and you do a couple of social posts and you forget about it. In this day and age, you just can't do that anymore.
Yeah, it makes so much sense.
Let's go to the next slide.
You bet.
So the other thing, though, is not enough just to look at the different fishing ponds. You also want to do something with that bait you put on there, and that's the SEO portion of this. And this is a kind of, this is a graphic design of a hub and spoke content strategy, which I know you have talked about in prior Facebook Live events. Imagine, the Super Bowl's coming up and you own a cooking website or something like Delish. So your main pillar or hub is Super Bowl recipes. And then what you do, you introduce that in early January to get people excited about the party they're going to plan for a Super Bowl recipe. And then you have these subtopics, tailgate guacamole, cheerleader nachos, super sandwiches. But what these arrows that you see back and forth here, you're using anchor text that is key phrases that are important to your audience, and you're linking internally back and forth. Now, Google has this three-legged stool, which is what they use to rank content in the SERPs, in the search engine results page, and it's based on trust, subject authority, and reputation. And how what is part of that is the amount of not the amount of quantity that you as a marketer present to your audience, but it's the in-depth quality of the subject that you are. And having links to subtopics using anchor text, that shows that's an algorithmic signal to Google that, hey, this content is valuable, and thus we should rank it highly. So if you think about it, you've got two audiences in the SERPs: your humans and the bots, the crawl bots, the SERP that's called the Google bot that crawls your page looking for signals to make this algorithmic determination on whether your content is worthy or not, worthy of being ranked. And part of that signal is interlinks. It's showing depth of subject, and that comes into the subject authority part of the equation. Paul, any questions on that?
Ray,
this is really important.
Yeah, you kind of just blew my mind right there because we're talking about content and pre-purposing and repurposing content, and we mentioned about where this fits in our lead funnel framework, which is in that phase about establishing authority and establishing empathy. And from a customer perspective, that's critical, right? You're never going to take a stranger and turn them into a customer until you've actually established authority. I am qualified to solve your problem, and you've established empathy. Not only am I qualified, but I also want to solve your problem. But what you just said, Ray, is that it's really that same process of establishing authority that is going to prove to Google that you are an authority. And by taking this interlinking process and this content atomization process, you're sending signals to Google that you are an authority. So the fact that we have to be an authority to get leads and get sales is the very tool that we can use to help ourselves rank well in the search engines. Is that right?
That's correct. Absolutely correct. And I've got a couple of examples we're going to get to. If you want to hit the next slide, Paul.
Yeah, you bet. That's fantastic.
So this is a client example of a company that does electrical field testing. They're a great client of ours, National Field Services. And they came to me with this white paper that they created from a webinar that they did, and said, hey, we did a webinar, we put the video up on YouTube, and then we created a white paper. So what else can we do with this? So I take a look at the table of contents and look at this. Why do maintenance? What causes failure? What maintenance strategy is the best? So again, this started out with a video, and then it became a white paper, and then they said to us, well, what do we do next? So let's hit the next slide, Paul.
Yeah, you bet.
So what we did is we broke this white paper down into a series of 4 blogs, and then we developed, and by the way, all these interlinked, and then we created a premium asset, which was an ebook. So we spruced the white paper up, made it a lot more easy for people like me with lots of pictures and big high fonts, and made a lot of bullet statements so that it would keep my very limited attention span. Because that's our audience now in this century in 2020. We don't read, we scan.
Right.
So we made it visually impressive. So now this became a gated asset. So again, we started with this video. We had a white paper. Now we created a premium ebook, which takes all 4 blogs and puts them into one, which is essentially the white paper. But
Right.
we got 4 pieces of content plus social posts, and those 4 blogs all interlink to each other and then link to a landing page with this reliability centered maintenance, which is now gated. What that means is someone has to opt in to get it. And once they opt in, they get this for free. And there they are now into our sales drip. So we've got a series of 6 emails that go out to the marketing qualified lead, which we got from them opting into the ebook. Paul, any thoughts on
Yeah,
this?
I just love the fact that you are taking 4 blogs and turning that into a gated asset. I mean, we've got to write the blogs anyways, right? That's part of our process. It's part of the framework. It's what gets us, something to share in social. It gets us SEO capability or rankings, if you will. But now we're slicing or not slicing, but stitching those things together and turning them into a gated asset that now is going to generate us leads. So that's fantastic.
Yeah, and just a note on the subject of the blogs, facts are the most important. It's one of the most important SEO tactics you can deploy yourself. And facts means frequently asked questions, because Google search engines have gotten so much better at understanding context that um, questions, people are typing queries in now rather than key phrases. So almost everything now is a long tail key phrase. So it's really important to create your content around facts, frequently asked questions. Let's hit the next one, Paul.
Yeah, you bet.
So this is the final slide. It's just kind of summary. So we've talked to you about content atomization, which is breaking a large theme or a big content piece into um, smaller disparate items that you can then interlink to each other. It's all, we talked about the hub and spoke, and the most important part of the hub and spoke is not just creating these small content pieces, but linking them all together, interlinking for SEO and helping you rank higher in the SERPs. And it's also known, this has become lately, it's been called a content pillar strategy, but it's actually hub and spoke that's been around a lot longer. And it's something we've been doing at Vendy from day one. So um, Paul, any questions, any thoughts?
Hey, Ray, thanks so much for sharing your thoughts here today. So it sounds like, let me just say this back to you, make sure that we fully understand this. The key takeaways here are, hey, we've got to have content. Content is the fuel that makes a lead funnel framework go. But, let's not take a once and done approach to this, but rather, be thoughtful and strategic about how we're going to create this content so that we can kind of go both directions. What I heard you say is we want to atomize or go make big things smaller and use them in a lot of places by lifting content out and sharing them in social or putting them in other formats. But we also want to go the other way. We can take blog posts and we can stitch those together and turn those into gated assets or longer form content. But the key is, people are out there trying to learn stuff, right? Our prospects want to learn, and we've got to go where they are. We got to share information that's relevant and important to them. And it sounds like the genesis of that is really our blog content, because that's where all of this stuff comes from, whether we go smaller or bigger. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct. And so you're atomizing, you're making smaller, going into subtopics, proving your subject expertise to Google, and interlinking everything. That's the icing on the cake, and that's really where you're going to see the boost in the search engine results pages. And again, a final note for me at least, seeing that boost in the search engine results pages means you're going to rank higher, and when you rank higher, you get more traffic.
Yeah, and we all want more traffic, don't we, Ray?
More traffic, more leads.
That's right. That's right. Ray, this was fantastic. Thank you so much for sharing your thoughts. And Ray's going to be back on again in the future. And be sure to check him out on LinkedIn. He's a smart dude. He's also the most seasoned person in our company. And I give him crap about that all the time. But as you can tell, he knows his stuff. So